Are you suggesting that someone's trying to make a real-life sequel?
Stab 2? Who'd want to do that? Sequels suck.
No, come on, man.
Oh, please. By definition alone, they're inferior films.
It's bullshit generalization. Many sequels have surpassed their original.
Oh, yeah?
Name one.
Yeah.
Aliens, far better than the first.
Yeah, well, there's no accounting for taste.
Thank you, Ridley Scott rules.
With the recent rumours of a sequel pitch for Days Gone being rejected by Sony, a lot of the discourse has pointed to the fact that while this wasn't a perfect game, Days Gone laid a solid foundation for a sequel to expand and improve on. This is often the case with video games. Developers learn from the criticisms of their first attempt at an interesting gameplay or narrative concept and come back with an even better sequel. Welcome back to Game Gentleman. In this week's video, we look at 10 video game sequels better than the original. There are plenty of occasions where a franchise keeps improving and iterating, and a third or even fourth game are better than the ones that came before it. However, for the sake of this list, we're focusing only on the second entry in any given franchise. Before we get started, if you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Number 10, Uncharted 2, Among Thieves. The PlayStation exclusive Uncharted introduced us to lovable rogue Nathan Drake, wisecracking friend and mentor figure Sully, and Mark-turned-love interest Elena as they attempted to uncover the lost city and treasures of El Dorado. Uncharted was Indiana Jones without the whip or the pretense of archaeology. It was a globe-spanning adventure full of huge set pieces, environmental puzzles, and cover-based shootouts. Uncharted 2 kicked things up a notch right from the opening scene, which sees Drake waking up on a train hanging precariously off the edge of a cliff. And right away, Naughty Dog was making the statement that everything they did in the original Uncharted was child's play compared to what we were about to experience. The environments got bigger, the puzzles got more complex and evolved, the gunplay and combat mechanics were tweaked and improved, we were introduced to more characters who occupied Drake's world, and the game featured multiple action set pieces throughout that would not feel out of place in the most Michael Bay of films. Number 9, Mass Effect 2. It's probably cliché to compare the second entry in any trilogy story to The Empire Strikes Back, but Mass Effect 2 warrants such praise. Taking the core concepts of the very promising original, Mass Effect 2 brought with it denser, more vibrant worlds, a larger cast of characters whose loyalty and trust you needed to earn, better combat mechanics with improved abilities and weapons, and an overall better gameplay experience. The stakes of the game were also much higher, and the decisions you made actually mattered, leading up to a final mission which, while avoiding spoilers, could see either everyone or no one survive depending on how you played your cards throughout the game. With Mass Effect 1 reportedly getting a massive overhaul thanks to the Legendary Edition, it will be interesting to see how the two compare. But for the time being, there's no doubt that Mass Effect 2 is head and shoulders above its predecessor. Number 8, Portal 2. Valve was already onto a hit when it released Portal as a part of the Orange Box bundle. With its fresh take on both first-person and puzzle platforming genres, iconic imagery and witty dialogue. So how do you improve on what many would consider to be a near-perfect game? The answer to this came in Portal 2, which took a lot of what made the original great, adding in a few tweaks and new features to gameplay, and an incredible performance by Stephen Merchant. However, one of the biggest ways Portal 2 stepped it up compared to the original is in the addition of its multiplayer mode. This cooperative mode saw players needing to work together and communicate to solve puzzles much harder than the single-player story, often requiring players to execute difficult maneuvers, operate in tandem, and beat time restrictions. Number 7, Assassin's Creed 2. Ubisoft took a leap of faith when they created the original Assassin's Creed. Building a new IP based off of a spin-off idea from Prince of Persia, the 2007 title would not only prove to be a hit, but it would also shape much of the core Ubisoft game mechanics for years to come. While Assassin's Creed was a great game, it was by no means perfect, with much of the criticism levelled at protagonist Altair being a bit bland and many of the game's missions being very repetitive. Then along came Assassin's Creed 2, which took us from the 12th century Crusades to turn of the 16th century Renaissance Italy, and introduced us to charismatic rogue Ezio Auditore, chronicling his journey to becoming an assassin and fulfilling his destiny. Assassin's Creed 2 learnt much from its predecessor, introducing greater mission and weapon variety, injecting more personality into the characters and the environment, and creating an engaging story which would become a saga across 2 subsequent direct sequels. Number 6. Silent Hill 2. Not the only horror game to make it onto this list, Silent Hill 2 sees players return to the titular fog-covered town, only this time to face new traumas and horrors as protagonist James Sunderland, who follows a mysterious letter from his wife who passed 3 years earlier. Between this and Resident Evil 7, it's pretty safe to say never go anywhere that a communication from a dead or missing loved one is drawing you into. Silent Hill 2 focuses on different areas of the town than its predecessor and delves further into the backstory of Silent Hill itself. It also introduces us to some of the game's most iconic monsters, including none other than series icon Pyramid Head, all of which are twisted manifestations of the grief, guilt, and other emotions of James and the supporting characters he encounters. Silent Hill 2 also benefited from the step up in console generations in terms of not only the graphical quality, but the overall concepts and designs of the game that was able to be achieved over and above the original. It's little wonder Silent Hill 2 regularly features highly in lists of the best video games overall, let alone the best horror games. Number 5. Batman: Arkham City. Another case of a sequel taking the original game's concepts and going bigger and bolder, Arkham City was the sequel to Rocksteady's Arkham Asylum, and on a personal note was the title which brought me back to gaming after a brief hiatus. Arkham City breaks free from the confines and narrow passageways of Arkham Asylum and sees Batman, starting out as Bruce Wayne in full civilian mode, trapped in an entire section of Arkham City which has been converted into a supermax prison of sorts. Although, considering a pretty large portion of Gotham's rogues gallery and their countless henchmen are freely roaming around the streets, it's less of a prison and more of a crime slum. Arkham City shares a lot of the DNA of Asylum, mixing Metroidvania-like areas with the signature combat style, traversal, and attention to detail of the original, but just does it on such a bigger scale, with a larger open world map and intertwining story with sometimes ally, sometimes enemy, Catwoman. Number 4. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. The follow-up to 1999's groundbreaking skateboarding title, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, took everything that was great about the original and improved it. Delivering an expanded roster of professional skateboarders, more iconic levels such as School 2, Venice Beach and Skate Heaven, Park Editor mode, and the one key improvement which puts it head and shoulders above the original. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 was the first game in the franchise in which players could manual. The manual was a means of linking tricks to create some of the ridiculous combo scores the series is known for. Players could use manuals and nose manuals in and out of flips, grabs, grinds and specials to easily create 6, 7 and 8 figure or higher scores. But it wasn't only about the point chasing. Manuals made the game feel and flow much better, further cementing the game as the epitome of skateboarding titles at the time. Fortunately, when Vicarious Visions remastered Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 for current-gen consoles, they retained not only the manual, but included other features from later sequels in the game, such as reverts and freestyle tricks, allowing players to revisit classic original Tony Hawk levels with an all-new skill set. Number 3. Street Fighter 2. The granddaddy of all fighting games, Street Fighter 2 is such an iconic sequel that many people forget the original even exists. In fact, if it weren't for the number 2 in the title, we think the original Street Fighter would have become even more obscure. While the original only allowed players to play as Ryu, or Ken if you were player 2, Street Fighter 2 opened up the entire roster of fighters for players to select, each with their own special moves and storyline. Introduced combos, which we'd previously covered in our video on game bugs that became features, and bonus stages. Street Fighter II alone has seen multiple re-releases and special editions and paved the way for arguably one of the largest, if not the largest, fighting game franchise in the world. Number 2. Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 2 was the follow-up to 1996's survival horror title and did everything bigger and arguably better than its predecessor. Moving the action from the Spencer Mansion into Raccoon City, Resident Evil 2 saw players taking control of either Leon Kennedy or Claire Redfield as they fight to survive the outbreak. While the familiar gameplay loops of limited ammo, obscure lock and key environmental puzzles, and underground laboratories all make an appearance, Resident Evil 2 introduced new iconic enemies such as the Licker and Mr. X, new series characters such as Ada Wong and Sherry Birkin, new weapons such as the grenade launcher, and an all-new A-B playthrough mechanic intertwining the stories of our two protagonists, meaning that some of the decisions you made or items you take in your first playthrough will have ramifications for your second. And this is not even mentioning the bonus unlockable game modes of Hunk and Tofu. 2019's Resident Evil 2 remake brought the title into the modern era with updated gameplay, visuals, and mechanics, further cementing the title as one of the all-time great sequels. Number 1. Super Mario Bros. Super Mario Bros. Is a game so iconic that many people would not even realise that it's a sequel. You see, while the title was the first of Mario's true adventures in the Mushroom Kingdom, the original Mario Bros. Was an arcade title later ported to the NES, which saw Mario and his palette-swapped brother Luigi facing off against Koopa-like enemies in a series of stages, with the game's only goal being to clear each stage. Mario would come a long way in the follow-up title Super Mario Bros., with a complete adventure through several worlds, facing a much wider variety of enemies, utilising power-ups, and rescuing Princess Peach from series antagonist Bowser. The two games are so incredibly different that we couldn't imagine the blue overall wearing plumber to ever have become such an icon without this sequel. So that's our list of video game sequels that are better than the original. For what it's worth, we don't believe that just because the sequel pitch for Days Gone 2 was rejected, that it means we'll never see a follow-up to the original, and hopefully, if that day ever comes, Days Gone 2 will qualify for its own entry into another list like this. Are you disappointed that we're not getting a follow-up to Days Gone in the near future? What video game sequels do you love more than the original? Let us know in the comments below. As always, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and if you have an older sibling, share this with them and tell them that you're the better, more iconic sequel to their original. This has been GameGentleman, and thanks for watching.